Hey, John, welcome, man. Another week in the jump seat.
Here we are, another Friday.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, to those of
Yeah,
you watching us live and or those who will be watching us as post-event, welcome to the jump seat. For those of you guys who've not watched us before, it's a weekly spotlight where you got two jump seat firefighters, myself, David Durstein, and my co-host in crime, I guess on this side, Mr. John Martins.
that's
And
right.
the show brings you guys a weekly spotlight into the fire service where we look at 200 years of fire service tradition, but really bring it to a different light and try to lead the fire service better than it is with subject matter experts, insights into products or even how products are made to really better influence you all and give you a little more insight into our industry. Today we've got a great show put together for you, and I can't wait to get in. And it's really, how can you get some more money? Show me the money. Bring it on,
That's
right?
right. Show me the money.
And
There it is.
so
Keys to unlocking fire service grants. Very
absolutely,
important, especially
it
in a
really
time like
is.
now. So I'm glad we've got somebody in here that can tell us that here in just a minute. So
Yeah, and we've
it'd
got
be
one of the
great.
best. We got one of the best in the industry for it. So I think it's great that we'll be bringing our guests on here in just a few minutes. But as always, we
Definitely.
kind of hit some key topics in the fire service events that are happening around the country. And John, what you got in the what's happening in the fire service this week?
Yes, I will show you here. I've got a little visual here. Give me just a second. So we did a little preview of this apparatus here I think it was a couple months back. Midpoint. I just wanted to show and kind of give people a chance to look at what's a pretty phenomenal looking apparatus. You don't see many like this, but Dave, tell us a little bit about the truck and tell us what's coming here in the near future, what we're going to do with it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so this one here is a Rosenbauer Avenger chassis. It was actually just sold and delivered by Kaza Fire Equipment. They're going through some of the initial training on it right now, but it's going to Cecil Township Volunteer Fire Company outside of Pittsburgh. So it's a suburban community southeast of Pittsburgh there. But this truck is actually it's pretty phenomenal when you look at it. So it's an all-wheel drive chassis. Outfitted with an Akron Deckmaster up on top, as well as a forestry bumper monitor on the front. Actually, I lied, a
Right here.
Firefox there on the front bumper. And it also features IDEX Fire and Safety SAM system on a rear mount pump here. So, what's kind of cooler about this truck, it just has a unique look, right? Something new. It's a different look that it has altogether. But we're going to be trying to actually go out here live and visit this truck in person here in a couple weeks. So hopefully we
That's
can
right.
make that happen. When they get the truck in service and feel a little bit more comfortable with it, we'll run out and see if we can't do a live jump seat show possibly with that truck and get a little more insight. Maybe you can see it in operation.
You bet. Definitely. Well, Dave, that's awesome. I gotta post one more thing here and bring up a quick little visual. There's some good news, exciting news, and we want you to let us know a little more info here. But we have a new member, I think, in the Durstein family.
We
Born,
do.
was it Saturday? Was it Saturday?
She was born Sunday. Yeah.
Sunday.
So,
Okay.
so baby Mary. So
Yep.
my wife and I were blessed to have a new little girl in the family. So Mary was born
Yep.
last Sunday, and we're glad to have her in the family, and she's been a lot of fun over the last few days as we all acclimate to adjusting to new sleep patterns. John,
Yep.
I was used to sleeping all night, but now
Not for a while.
yeah, she's got her days and nights kind of
Well,
flip flop.
last week I was wondering if you were going to make it or just all of a sudden disappear because it was time. It was any minute. So I'm
Well,
I'm glad everything's good. So pretty
that was
exciting
kind of the
stuff.
fear of mine as well. Was my wife coming through the door behind me here and saying, "Hey, it's time to go" in the middle of the show last week, and
Yep.
she was 5 days late from her due date. But
Yes.
everything went great, and mom's well, and baby's just
Good.
beautiful. So thanks for
That's
bringing that up, John.
phenomenal. Definitely. We'll kick things into gear here for the show today. I'm going to bring up the title here again. So this is number 23. We're going to be talking about fire service grants, and I'm privileged to introduce to you guys. It'll be Liz Finkle. Here she is coming in. Liz, thank you for coming into the jump seat. You've been an instrumental part of our organization, and you and Dave especially have interacted in previous projects and other things, and still interact today. And just want to thank you and welcome you to the jump seat. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Liz.
Yeah, thanks, guys. My name is Liz Finkle. I hail from Kansas City, Missouri. I know we wanted to make sure and mention that one with
Midwest,
John. Yeah, John being in the Midwest as well. I work over at Lexipol, or as some of you guys may know a little bit more, Fire Rescue One and Fire Grants Help. So I've been doing this thing for nearly a decade, which is hard to believe. I've had the honor and privilege to be in the position to help the helpers. So it's what gets me up in the morning. So I'm happy to be here with you guys.
That is awesome.
Awesome. Well, one of the big things that obviously grants are a key piece of the fire service on a regular basis, but I think, no one foresaw the events happening here with COVID and then the impacts it's having on the industry. So, John and I kind of thought, what better topic to have than grants, as we kind of typically cycle around to the grant cycle, the federal grant cycle in the fall here. But, budgets are going to be getting tighter this year. So, Liz, I mean, what kind of grant opportunities are actually out there? What do they entail? And, what do they do for a fire department or EMS department, or even police department for that matter?
Yeah, so we're kind of in a unique time, right? I don't think most of us have gone through a pandemic, so this is certainly new. And our first responders are pivoting, much like many companies too. Everyone right now is trying to find solutions, alternative solutions to funding that they don't have, and certainly that's the case with grants. Most people in the fire service, with the majority of them being volunteer grants, are not a foreign thing, right? They're pretty familiar with, breakfast, fundraising and having to find those dollars for new PPE, for new SCBAs, things like that. So we're going to head into more of that, in the season that we're in, especially in 2021, as people have, and departments are probably utilizing their current budget to respond to the pandemic. So, grants are something that, again, fire service is familiar with, but oftentimes, just in my experience, I've worked with a lot of departments that it's still new to them. Grants can be really confusing, most of the time. The people that I work with, grants aren't their full-time job. They're first responders. You guys know. I mean, have you guys applied for grants in your department? I didn't even ask you that. If you guys have applied for grants, or anyone in your department.
Yeah, I can tell you from my department, we do and have. We've interesting enough, we've been very successful in some of the local grants, but maybe not as much in like the AFG process. With our department specifically. John, how about you guys?
Yeah, so our leadership's been very proactive, as you said, similar to what you just mentioned. Federally, though, I mean, I know there are things we've never touched that are probably out there, and we're eligible for, with the right, being proactive and getting ahead of these things. And so definitely not to the potential that we could, but yeah, we've definitely utilized several and continue to do so.
Liz, you brought up a good point there, and that is, we're not grant writers. We're not around grants every day, myself or John or many of us in the fire service, right? And so in some cases, I would say you talk to a few chiefs or other folks maybe in the volunteer space, they're actually a little bit scary to them. So when we think about grants, if I'm going to my fire department, how should we prepare for a grant or for the grant process?
Yeah, the good news is there's a lot you can do ahead of time. So if you're not familiar with grants, grants have an application period that they're open and accepting applications from departments. It's generally a 4 to 6 week period, which, in theory seems like a long time to be able to work on an application, but when you're going on calls and you're doing your actual job, that time can go by pretty quickly. So we want to make sure when we're working with departments that they're working pretty far in advance, before a grant program even opens. So there's definitely some administrative stuff that departments can be doing ahead of time, like getting certain registrations. There's a system called SAM, which is, oddly enough, I know, one of your products, but it stands for System of Award Management, which is something most departments have to be registered for in order to apply for federal funding. DUNS numbers, tax ID numbers, and then just things like making sure your call data is all up to date. Believe it or not, I used to talk to a lot of departments that had never really done like a PPE inventory, so they didn't really know how old their pants were versus their jackets, or maybe the tags have just completely worn off, and this was probably like 8 years ago. So hopefully people are getting more up to date on those PPE things, but keeping a current inventory list of your equipment. All of those things are going to aid and help you to be proactive so that when grants open, you're ready to roll, as well as just talking to your stakeholders, right? Like if you're going to have to get financials from a financial department in a city, that's not as easy as it sounds for some agencies. So
well, and we have to remember as responders, the topics we discuss daily, that we communicate about daily, the reasons why we do what we do and why we need what we need, that's common knowledge to us, but that is not common knowledge to, well, anybody else. It's not. So we have to do a good job of being proactive and communicating effectively to make sure that, oh, Dave jumped off. Hopefully he comes back. To make sure that we've explained what we're doing and why we need those things. We're not just a bunch of greedy firemen who, right? We're not just here to just take advantage of stuff like that. We need things, and people need to know why. So
that's a really good point too, John. Welcome.
I don't know what happened there. It just disappeared. So good to be back.
And that's a good point. We see, I think, you guys were talking about some community foundations. There may be some local foundations. For you guys, it's easy to understand why you would need to be NFPA compliant, right? But that doesn't make a lot of sense to most people. And that is definitely the case with some grant makers, especially if you're applying to a community foundation that's, target public safety grant, things like that. They don't really know what your day-to-day is. So making sure they understand the exact need, the purpose, why it's important to y'all is a good thing to explain when you're writing grants. The great thing about the Assistance to Firefighter Grant, AFG, is it's your peers who are reading those applications. So those become a little bit easier to write because they get it, right? So depends on your audience when you're writing grants too.
So Liz, you mentioned a couple things there, the AFG grants, I'm very familiar with them, the AFG and the SAFER, the federal grant programs through FEMA, but there's grants everywhere. And you mentioned, hey, some local foundation grants, even state grants. Sounds like there's a whole bunch, but maybe I don't know where to find them. How can I learn more about grants? Is there a place I can go find it?
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly visit our site, firegrantshelp.com. We have a number of resources available that are free on that site. So I definitely encourage you to visit there. We have quite a few resources available. Certainly, if you're wanting to know more about the FEMA suite of grants, you can go to FEMA.gov and look at some of those opportunities. But of course, I'm going to mention Fire Grants Help, right? Because that's where my heart and soul is. So, but we have a lot of opportunities available for agencies to utilize and get some of that info.
So are there ones coming up right now that we should make our viewers aware of?
Yeah. And I mean, I know we've already mentioned it, but certainly we are in AFG season, the Assistance to Firefighter Grant. And, a majority of departments are certainly familiar with that program. And we're currently in an awarding cycle. I think we're in like round 9 or 10 of awards from the 2019 application. And they just sent out some denial letters. So if you are getting those, it's time to start preparing for that next cycle. We're likely going to see that opening up before the end of the year. So that is a great program, of course, for operational expenses and staffing and training. So definitely consider that as a program to look into through the end of the year. And then, again, considering the times we're in, our federal government has moved quickly, which is sometimes surprising. And they did release quite a bit of funding to public safety through the CARES Act, including a new and separate program from our regular AFG, which is called the Afg Supplemental Grant. They have opened that, and that's specifically to address the needs of first responders with the pandemic. Think PPE and anything to do with COVID type response. They've opened and closed one application cycle. They're actually going to end up opening a second, hopefully here in October, which has about $33 million available through that program. So we'll see that AFG supplemental COVID funding before we see a regular AFG cycle. So we're busy and there's stuff available. So
it's probably important to mention too, though, is part of that supplemental grant program with that CARES Act is in fact a segment that is allotted just for volunteers and combination department.
Yes.
So if you're watching and you're thinking, hey, I have no shot because we're just a little department of getting any of those funds, they actually allotted a specific chunk directly for those folks as well. So I'd encourage you to find out more about it and make sure you put your applications in. The other piece of that, I think it is, it has to be tied to COVID-related expenses.
It does.
Or equipment with COVID-ish related costs. So definitely something to look into and get some help with.
Yeah.
Real quick too, I probably should ask this a few minutes ago, but I just thought of it now. How would you say the fire service is doing with this topic? Are we mediocre? Are we okay? Could we be doing a lot better collectively? Do you feel like there's certain areas that really understand it and take advantage and certain that don't? I mean, what's your thoughts?
With grants, right? Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing with grants, and I've certainly seen departments evolve that I was working with in 2012 that are now, they're doing this thing all by themselves, which is certainly the hope. I'm seeing departments prepare a little bit better, which, is what we could want. So they're always grant ready. I always say grant season is year round because you're always preparing, right? And there's things that you're going to do in your everyday job and your everyday, like logging calls and that inventory. Some departments that's normal. So I am starting to see people become more familiarized with grants because there's so much more of a necessity than they ever have been. It's kind of, almost out of need that we're just seeing more departments really, really interested in alternative means of funding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So Liz, the other thing I guess is I'm just looking at my notes here for today, but we talked a little bit about COVID related impacts, but did it drastically change the grant process because of COVID? And the other one, I hate to go down this road, but we've got a big day coming up here in November, Election Day.
Yeah.
What's going to happen around elections with the with grants or things of that nature? Do we have any foresight? Do you have any vision into that?
A crystal ball, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Right?
It is almost Halloween. Yeah. So, with any election year, no matter the scenario, with elections, we see grants moving really fast. And we've certainly seen that already this year. I mean, I think I mentioned it. I was just amazed at the fact that FEMA was able to rock out AFG supplemental and get those awards started in such a short period of time. I mean, that certainly speaks to what's going on in our nation and what's going on in the first responder community and the need. So election years bring on fast grant cycles, and we've definitely seen that. Post-election, we may see similar grant programs and a lot of the same grant programs. What we will likely see changing are maybe some of those priorities within those existing grant programs, kind of to respond to all the things. Respond to 2020. Let's just be honest. Everything that has happened in 2020. Yeah.
Interesting. So, one of the things we got it in the bottom corner here, firegrasshealth.com. What is firegrasshealth.com? How does that actually work?
Yeah. Well, to give you a little bit of background, again, I feel like we're almost stepping back in time. So Fire Grants Help started, and really all of our grant programs, we do work with law enforcement, we work with EMS, just public safety and local government in general. The program really came out of a need in 2009 that we were hearing from our members on our media sites like Fire Rescue One and Police One, from our members, which were departments, but also from manufacturers that were on our site and advertising for funding. And this was during the time of the Recovery Act in 2009. So kind of that first wave, I don't want to say first wave of recession, but the last recession we were in, that's really where this program started and came out of a need we were hearing from our members. So what we do is help departments through that grant application process. We try to take out, some of the confusion of the grant application process and be a resource and tool for the fire service and just public safety to be able to utilize to go through that process. We do grant writing services. We work with a number of manufacturers who support this program and provide some free services to agencies. So there's lots of different avenues and services that, based on the department and what they need, we can kind of alter that and work within those different services.
I can kind of see already right there on this. It looks like relatively easy. John, go ahead and scroll down just a minute there, and I see upcoming grant deadlines right here on the site, so you can see some of those things right out in front of you. And I think there's some search engines and stuff on the site as well. Anything you want to point out on the site there specifically, Liz, that would maybe be beneficial for an average Joe just jumping on and taking a peek?
Yeah, I'm seeing if I can let me maximize this for myself. No worries. Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can see we've got a number of tabs up here up top. We have our grants tab, our free assistance, which is one of the most popular, right? Free is for me. And this is a place where you can go and see the different products that we have free support programs through, which is a wonderful place to start. We've also just got some good news on grants, resources, and articles. A majority of the grant writers and consultants that we work with are all in public safety. Most of them, in fact, are still active in the fire and EMS service, which is great. So they're the ones writing our articles, informing our members, which is wonderful. So please visit. It's a great tool and resource, and there's lots of free stuff, which is, again, what we all like and need.
Excellent. And we'll make sure and include your information too, your email address. Here, I'll get it up here in a minute. But that's great information, and probably often overlooked and often, missed, just because we get in the daily grind and we forget about how being proactive with this stuff. It may not help us the day we're working on it, but it'll help us later, tomorrow, and in years to come, of maybe uncertain times like this year. Who would have thought, right?
Yeah.
So definitely great information. We really appreciate you sharing some of that. We always, in 20 minutes, we kind of scratch the surface on a lot of these topics, which is what we've done. But it's definitely a good start. And and in the future, if there are, within this topic of grants, there are certain areas we want to focus on, Liz, we'd love to have you maybe share down the road on one of those a little more and a little more refined. So
of course, please do. I'm always open for conversation. It takes me out of my day to day, and this is fun. So let me know. Keep me posted. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely, Liz. It's great to have you here. I know John put up your business email there as well. I know you provided another one there also. I think it was expert at firegrasshealth.com, if I remember right.
Yep,
and
that's correct.
If you're that scared firefighter or chief or officer that's in charge of grants, you're not totally sure about where to go. If I email that experts at firegrasshealth.com, where does that go? And what do I need to expect back? And does it cost me anything?
Totally. It goes to our whole team. So we divide and conquer, and you'll have someone reach out to you and just really start the conversation. How can we help you? Here's what we can do for you. No strings attached type of thing, unless you want to go down that route. So, we'll start the conversation based on what you need and then go from there.
Awesome.
Thanks again, Liz.
Yeah,
Liz,
thanks, guys.
Much appreciated here. It's great to have you. And like John said, hope to get you back on the show as we provide more insight and more opportunities down the road here as well. So thanks, Liz.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
So, John, another round of the jump seat in the books here today.
That's right.
And a great guest. I'm glad we were able to have Liz on here. She's, just a massive amount of information in that of hers, and a great resource for the fire service.
Yeah, it's always tough, but yeah, no, we definitely. I think there's a lot more to expand on there. Just and really, it's our duty to take advantage of some of these things and utilize Liz and her team for maximizing our department's resources and capabilities. So anyhow, that's about all I got. Dave, what else? Anything else?
Yeah, so I mean, hey, I just want to tell you guys, join us next week. We got a little something special in there. We're actually going to be out flowing a little water here.
That's right.
And getting our hands wet, or at least John is. I'm going to be running the show from my home office here, and John's going to be out getting his hands wet.
That's right.
But we actually got a few field trips over the next couple of weeks. Now that the COVID situation is kind of backing down a little bit, we're getting out, getting a chance to go and do some things from the field. So I think you should be tuning in for sure next week. As John's going to go get some water flowing and have a little fun. And I've got a field trip, middle of October scheduled. So we got a great lineup for the next couple of weeks that you just can't miss.
And going into October here very quickly, we'll have some, in the topic of prevention, we'll have some stuff for the kiddos coming too. So
absolutely. I think we got a great contest we're going to be rolling out here for the kids.
Yeah.
And looking forward to that. And remember, every Friday, 3:00 Eastern Standard Time, right here on the Jump Seat. You can catch us on any of the IDEX Fire and Safety social media pages, through our watch parties or the live feed right there. And we'd actually ask that you share and tell others. We'd like to have you on here. I wouldn't be remiss to actually acknowledge a few quick things, John, before we jump off. So D Animal, thank you very much for joining in, and the congratulations. I do appreciate as well as Bobby Rischel. I know you guys are watching, and I appreciate the comments. That's another thing to remember. If you're watching, if you're a regular on our show, we do get to see the comments. They actually pop up live on our screens. We can go back and review them mid-show. So if you have questions, you have things come up, if there's something you want to see, throw it in the comments line. We take a look at them. And thanks again for the congratulations on my new bundle of joy, Little Mary. And maybe sometime she'll jump in here and join Dad on his lap for a little surprise appearance. But
all right,
I'll let you wrap it up, John.
Yeah, thanks everybody. As always, be safe, and we'll see you next week. Same place, same time. Take care.